I'm here today with Matias, and Matias, you are from a family of Ukrainian background, and you were the director of Word of Life Ukraine. You've had to split your staff and families to get some to safety to deal with this. Before I get to that, I want to start about your own personal connections to your country. And you said that you've had family now for a couple of generations that have had to deal with war in Ukraine.
Yeah, that's right. My great grandfather, he fled the Soviet Revolution. I think in '29 he fled to Argentina from Ukraine. Then later he took his kids right before the war in 1939. So my background on my dad's side, it's all Ukrainian.
Okay.
Yeah. But I was born in Argentina.
And now you're having to flee the country again,
Yes.
having gone back there, and your father was a director at Word of Life Ukraine.
Right, yeah. When I was 9 years old, my dad was challenged. He was already a missionary serving in Argentina, a pastor and a missionary, and he was challenged to start the ministry in Ukraine because, the door has opened after communism fell, and so I grew up basically in Ukraine, since I was 9. I've been there.
You've had to make some tough decisions in the last couple weeks, that you had to get some staff members out of the country into safety, some families of those staff members, others have chosen to or had to remain. That coming to that decision and making that decision, you started with students because you had students and started to get them to safety as they needed to, and then on to staff. Just the logistics of that and the decision making and having to walk through each person and what's the right decision. What's the emotional toll that takes on you as a director, because you're responsible for all of them?
Yeah, I don't know if I can even explain what the emotional toll is. It's pretty big. Even you just going through that, I'm relaying in my mind, thinking all the decisions and hours we spent, with our team, with leadership team, with my co-director, making all these decisions, and it almost seems like a lot, too much. But yeah, we were in this tense mode for a bit over a month before the war, and since we had the students with us that live on campus, it's extra responsibility. Plus, we have a staff of about 35 full-time missionaries, 12 families and singles. So
Wow.
It's not about just thinking about yourself and your own family. So obviously, there was a lot of pressure in making those decisions. But we, thankfully, before we evacuated the day the war started, on the 24th, we had let go our students before that and make kind of some space for ourselves. And so we kind of moved the spring break week a little bit early, and then had a week online, and things happened as they happened, and so we had to evacuate our families and single missionaries and children here to Hungary, and all these tough decisions. So it's a lot, but before every big decision that we had to make, we prayed before it, we prayed afterwards, and I think it's just God's wisdom. Some of these decisions, as much as you plan and you try to be wise in making them and preventive and all, I just go back and think, I don't know why or how we made that decision, but obviously we're asking for wisdom from the Lord, and He just showed us. So,
Much like Word of Life Hungary, that has both the staff and the student makeup is from a bunch of different countries. Word of Life Ukraine is the same thing.
Yes.
What all countries are represented among students and staff there?
One of the reasons we started the Bible Institute in Ukraine was because of the Russian language. Because, as my dad used to say, probably the only good thing the Soviet Union did was, make everybody speak Russian. So now, you have people from the Stan countries, Central Asia, Ukraine, Russia, different languages, but we can all communicate. At least this generation can. So we had students from all of Central Asia, which are all the Stans, even some Germans and Americans with Ukrainian background or Russian, so they knew the language. So it's kind of, it was multicultural, lots of countries represented.
Yeah. It's a model of the body of Christ.
Yes,
all these
definitely.
different people makeups together, which has to make something like this even tougher when you're having to deal with it. Is you've brought some of that staff here to Hungary, and some of them have been able to go to other places.
Mm-hmm.
But some of you are still housed here and remaining here at Hungary Word of Life because you're still directing some things back in the country.
Yes, so we were able to send most of our staff to Romania, well, at least a little bit over half, because we have a property there, Word of Life has, and they don't have a Bible school, so their property is mostly used only in the summer. And so we saw that as an opportunity because we could host, Ukrainians and bring them over there, and we certainly know how to run a property,
Right.
having been living in one for many years. So a lot of our staff is in Romania, running that property and helping Ukrainians over there. But just various, because of the international body of students, a lot of legal questions and visas and all this we're dealing with now here, and we still have the team back in Ukraine running our ministry there. And then just unexpected things that happened, and lots of miracles as well. We had one of our staff kids, this young family, they have 2 children. Their little son had a bit of an accident a couple of years ago, and he injured his esophagus really badly, so he needed surgery. His surgery was planned in Ukraine for the 28th. This is 4 days after the war.
Wow.
The alternative that they were giving was in Italy, but for some reason, various reasons, they weren't able to go to Italy. And so this happens, and we're in Hungary, and so we connect with the Italian embassy, the hospital in Italy, and they were able to, all the family was able to go there, and he's being treated now. So we have a missionary in Italy as well, and then one of the staff ladies is pregnant with her first baby, and so the husband remained in Ukraine. She's here, and she's had complications, and so she's here in the hospital. Was in a hospital. She was she's with Word Life now here in Hungary, but just situations we didn't expect. We just thought about moving and then starting to serve somewhere, but then you got to take care of these things. Plus, their husbands being away, you've got to take on a little bit of more of a involvement, in helping them and making sure they're safe. So for now, we have some part of the staff here in Hungary, and we have the ministries in Poland as well, and Czech Republic receiving Ukrainians, so some of our staff is also assisting them with that.
Then the staff that's still back in Ukraine, the campus, the Word of Life campus, is just outside of Kyiv,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But your staff there is doing runs up to the north border. Where are they going to, and what are they doing?
So our guys decided to go back to our property. Seemed kind of illogical because you're going back east, Kyiv, where it was, at least the first week it was pretty tense. You didn't know how things were going to go. But the Lord just, as we've learned throughout this whole situation, we like to have a plan ahead, but sometimes the Lord just shows the next step. They knew they had to go there, they got there, and the Lord just opened up this amazing opportunity of heading to the city of Chernihiv up north, which is, it's been under heavy attack and destruction by the Russians, and evacuating people. So we're working with the local Baptist churches there, and they're organizing the groups of refugees that need to get out or want to evacuate. And our guys have been basically just driving our vans. So what we do is the guys load up the vans with the food and supplies, because the city is in a complete disaster right now. There's no food, no light, no running water, no electricity, and so and no stores, no bread is baked, for example, anywhere. So the only food they can get is through these convoys that come in and supply. So our guys deliver supplies, around 2 tons of supplies every run, and they'll give that to the church so the church can help the people there in need, and we'll load the vans with evacuees and drive them to our property, and then they are taken west, or we drive them directly now to the train station in Kyiv, and then they head out.
How often are they making those runs up?
So this is day 12, I think. Since they've been there, there has been a 2-day curfew several days ago. By the way, today they're installing a new one, a 2-day curfew, so you cannot move around. But they've been going daily. Yeah. Normally a trip that takes about two hours maximum. It's taking them about 5 hours now, just one way. So it's basically the whole day. They get up really early, load up the vans, do the whole delivery, pick up the people. By the time they're back, it's near curfew hour 8, so they just gotta barely make it there and rest a little bit and start off again.
People who are able to give to Word of Life in Ukraine, are they able to help with these things then?
Yes, obviously, everything that we do, I mean, every run is about, because the prices went up for gas and stuff, so every run, we're running about 3 convoy now, so 3 convoys of cars, so it's a total of about 200 people daily that we're taking out, and it's almost like $600-700 a day just on gas. So there are expenses, obviously, and the food that we deliver. Thankfully, we're coordinating with other organizations, so there's a lot of supplies coming in, which is really good. We don't have to worry about that for the moment, but to keep the cars going, our people running, and extra needs. Cars are breaking every day. Thankfully, we're being able to fix them, but obviously, all of this is it's being done by the people that are praying and giving for us to be able to do this.
When Jesus told the disciples in the upper room that they'll know that you are my disciples by your love for one another, are you seeing that lived out? Because you're talking about churches who are partnering with Word of Life and people who are coming alongside. Do you think they're having a witness through all of this?
Definitely. One pastor put it, Ukraine was, I think in Europe it has the largest network of Baptist churches. I think it's about the biggest Baptist alliance in Europe. In my experience, as far as I've been able to travel, one of the most open countries for ministry, for the church, for Christianity. So one pastor put it as if we were a big mirror that we could reflect, God's glory. And now the mirror has been shattered, but spread, so we can, continue spreading that light wherever we are. And I think the church is doing that. There's fear at the beginning, there's panic, how to adjust, how to work, how to serve. But, the circumstances change, situations change, a war might start, but, the church still remains, the calling still remains, the mission still remains. And so it takes on a completely different way of doing things. Maybe it's just evacuating people from a city, but it's the only way to show them the love of Christ. And the way we're connecting with other pastors, I was mentioning, we started with only 4 vans. It was 4 guys that went up, but several pastors heard, "Hey, you're going, I'm going with you. I have a brother who has a van and he's joining." And so just connecting like that, even in extreme situations. By the way, just a couple of hours ago, from another church that's also doing runs, they wrote in the pastoral group, they said, one of our vans broke down, we need help on the way, and whoever knows a church nearby, 10 minutes later, they're like, thankful to God, everything's taken care of, a pastor called. These sort of things are amazing. One of the ladies that we evacuated came up to us, Sergey was my co-director, and she said, with tears in her eyes, just almost like bowing down, saying, "Thank you so much. I will never forget the Christians. For 2 weeks, I was running around asking for help to evacuate. Nobody wanted to help. Only the church helped me." And so she says, the war's going to be over, and so that's a good perspective that a lot of the believers have. The war, the conflict's going to be over, and the testimony is going to remain. And I think that Jesus and the gospel is shining in an amazing way. Just in all my communication, the first week you're just trying to reach everyone you can, figuring out how they are, do they need help, and a lot of former students, alumni, pastors, everybody. The word, this was something beautiful to see, it still is, but the word that you could hear most again and again and again was, we can see Christ everywhere. We can see Christ everywhere. I would write to pastors and say, I see Christ in you. One little testimony, my father-in-law, he's a deacon in the eastern city of Kharkiv. It's the second largest city in Ukraine.
Which is now surrounded.
It's surrounded, it's besieged. There are some exit routes, but by and large, it's pretty much under attack. And he's a cook. He's a deacon, so he goes to church now every day, and he's cooking food for everybody. And one day he was on a night shift, and so people just come in to find shelter in the church, even at night. And so there was this young guy just working on his laptop, and just my father just saw him working. Everybody was asleep, and he comes up to him and sits down. The guy says, "Would you like to sit with me? Just keep me company." And so my father says, "This great opportunity to start witnessing to him." And so he starts talking about, the church and about God. And the young man turned to him and he said, sir, he says, you don't really need to tell me much about Jesus because I have already seen him in you. I have seen everything I need to see. Like, he wasn't rejecting, he was saying, like, you really don't have to prove to me anything. I've already seen everything in your care, in your love, how you take me. That's something amazing that we're seeing today with the church and so many organizations coming together.
Most people don't know since the fall of communism that that Ukraine has been one of the fastest growing Christian countries, that there's been a big growth and a lot of impact. This is not, we're going to end and then everything will be okay again. There's been so much destruction, and you were showing us some pictures and video in some of these cities. The need is going to last for a while.
Yes.
Families that have been separated and the emotional, the spiritual toll and impact, the rebuilding that needs to be done. This is not a short-term recovery, is it?
No, it's a long-term. It's interesting that it's not something that scares everyone, because everybody talks with optimism about this. We'll rebuild, we'll come back together, but it's every day you understand that it's going to be from buildings and churches. This night one of the first seminaries to open in Ukraine after communism, European Bible Seminary, was bombed. About 30 rockets fell directly into there, just outside the outskirts of Kiev.
Wow.
So there's going to be a lot of rebuilding, for sure, that it's going to be needed. But you look at the nation and at the people. I'm so glad that there's a strong witness now, and I don't see that we're going to have to come back and kind of build a name for ourselves, so to speak. I think the church is going to have an important role in also building up the spiritual structure of the country in the future as well. But with every day that passes, you realize there's going to be a long run.
How would you encourage our friends to pray for you, for all your friends, the people of Ukraine, and the families who've been impacted?
Well, there's so many things to pray. Personally, for us, the separation is a big thing. It's so hard for families to be separated. Thankfully, some families were able to stay together because by law they were permitted to come out. So thankfully, they're able to be a great help for the efforts that we're doing here in Europe. But for Salman, you gotta understand that their father or their husband is separated, and that's a very hard emotional thing to bear. I think that's just for the Lord's grace on that. Not only, I know it's for almost everyone that's left Ukraine, and particularly for our ministry. We also don't want to. We want something we've been saying with our staff is that our calling hasn't changed. Our life has turned upside down in a sense, but our calling hasn't changed, and we don't want to settle down and saying, well, life's different now. What do I do now? Because there's a big need, and we've seen that, and we can still be fully engaged with that. So we don't want to lose focus on that, and that's something we need to pray for, because we have a lot of temptations now, a lot of reasons to kind of relax, or search for another direction in our lives. And something that I've repeatedly said to our guys, and we've between ourselves, is that I don't want this to redirect me in my life. It's just deepened me in my calling, in what we want to do. And of course, safety, it's a big thing that we want to pray for as well, because especially all of Ukraine, there's no secure place now, but our guys also risking their lives basically, because you hear reports of convoys, voluntary convoys being shut down, and it is dangerous really what they're doing, basically putting their lives at risk every day they go to help and give some safety to some people. So safety is a big prayer request also that we would like.
Okay. We'll continue to pray for you and for your staff and your team members and for your country, and asking God to continue to work there. Thank you very much for this conversation.
I appreciate it very much.